Welcome to the Podunk Polymouth, a podcast dedicated to the sentiments of a secular, sarcastic, screwed-up Southern SJW and skeptic. I'm your host, Chris. Come on in. Welcome to episode 94 of the Podunk Polymath podcast. I have with me this week a former evangelical pastor of 35 years, and I'll just let him go ahead and introduce himself. Dave Warnock, how's it going?
Good, Chris. Good to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be able to finally talk to you. I had actually scheduled before, but life, I actually moved, and I was kind of in the middle of moving, and I was kind of in, well, life was in flux, and I was, so anyway.
Life happens.
Yeah. So excuses. So I'm back in the game. I didn't want to give away too much on the intro. I'm going to let you go ahead and tell everybody what your story is.
Sure. Well, like you said, I was a Christian, evangelical, charismatic Christian, 30-something years, 35, 36 years, much of that time in pastoral ministry, either full-time paid staff or volunteer staff, always in leadership. So the only reason I mention that is because, a lot of people, their thought when you leave religion or you leave your faith is, you really never were that into it. You weren't really a Christian. And no, I was really a Christian and deep in it and had given my life to it from the age of 18 to about the age of 55. So that was about 8 years ago. And I woke up a little late in life, but better late than never.
So what made you wake up? Anything specifically?
A death of 1,000 cuts. It's a typical story. This thing and that thing that doesn't add up, and questions that aren't answered, and events that happen that you don't see God in. You just don't. Essentially, I ran out of reasons to believe, and I started looking around and realizing that the world pretty much works like it would if there were no God, because God never was showing up in crises of different kinds. I'd seen too many people, young and old, die of cancer and car wrecks, and it's not like I was mad at God because he didn't answer my prayer. It's that I look at a lifetime of serving him and living for him and realizing he really wasn't much in the picture. My prayers were one-way conversations, and events in life pretty much just happened, and I just didn't see an evidence for a God. And so I studied for a couple of years. From the 2009 to 2011, I began to really ask the hard questions, look deeply into the Bible and how it was formed and church history, and just started digging into the origins of it. In other words, looking behind the curtain, and I'm seeing how the sausage was made, and it was pretty ugly. And I came to the conclusion he's not there and he's never been there. And it was a traumatic event, to say the least.
Well, if anybody has listened to Cass's show, of course, he's had several people who have exited religion, have had similar experiences. I've had a couple people on my show talk about essentially the same thing. Did you go through some sort of middle process, maybe
No, I didn't step down. My entry into Christianity was diving into the deep end of the pool. I went from heathen to saint overnight, and was saved and speaking in tongues and full on doing coffee house street ministry in the next 2 weeks. So it wasn't a gradual wading into the pond for me, nor was it a wading out. Once I came to the conclusion the Bible was just a man-made book, I pretty much let everything go shortly thereafter. All the dominoes fell once that domino fell, because to me, biblical inerrancy, biblical inspiration, it all hinged on the Bible for me. That was my grounding, if you will, in Christianity. And if that didn't make sense, none of it made sense. So if the God of the Bible wasn't true, as I saw the Bible representing him, which is as it should, it's black and white. It's the words in the book. And if those words turned out to not be true, then what's the point of trying to hang on to any type of God? And so I was fine with letting all of it go.
Well, that's a little different than I usually. Usually, it's kind of a progression. Like people go from studying all kinds of different religious types, like Buddhism and whatever, but you just went straight into the heathenry.
I did. I didn't see any point in trying to cling to some semblance of a God. I just didn't see the need for one, and I still don't. We are capable of, as humans, of forging our own path and making our own choices and being responsible for our own decisions and accepting the consequences of our choices. And I just think it makes more sense. The world doesn't make sense to me if there's a God involved in it in any way, because there's just too much going on that you try to factor God into becomes untenable. It's just, you look around and say, how does God fit into this? And it just makes more sense to say, well, he doesn't. It doesn't. She doesn't. They don't. Whatever they are, whatever it is, there's just no need for a God. Life works just fine without one. So I didn't need a softer God or a nicer God or a Buddhist God or a spiritual force up there somewhere or some kind of energy thing. That stuff doesn't make any sense to me, just to be honest. And I know people like that too. They step down or they even stayed there in a place where, I just believe there's something out there and, there's some kind of a force. And I've had these experiences and I feel something, and I guess I'm just not wired that way. Show it to me, give me the evidence, show it to me in a way that makes sense. Otherwise, I have no need for it.
How deep were you in as a pastor?
I don't know if you can get any deeper than I was. I mean, I preached and taught and did Bible studies and small groups and men's ministries and music ministry and youth ministry and prayer ministry. I mean, there were times in my life, I once fasted 21 days without eating anything other than drinking juice. That's pretty goddamn dedicated. Yeah. And it got me nothing but hungry. But that was the level of my, it wasn't like I was trying to earn God's favor. I just was trying to get as close to God and hear God as best I could. I spent hours and hours in prayer, study of the Word, Greek origins of the word Hebrew. I mean, I had a library full of biblical study helps and things. I was a fervent teacher of the Word. I believed it, man. I lived it. I was not peripheral in any way. That's not to say I didn't make mistakes and sin and made bad choices, but I would always repent and come back and try to learn from it and do better. So I was in as far as you can get, as far as I can tell. I mean, anybody that says to me you weren't really into it just doesn't know what the hell they're talking about.
All right. So you're out of it.
Yep.
Now, kind of what happened after you got out of it?
Well, that was in sometime in 2011, I fully acknowledged that I no longer believed, and I started living as an agnostic. I hesitated to use the atheist word because it has so much baggage to it, but now I'm really fervently trying to speak that word loudly and proudly because that is what I am, and I'm not ashamed of it, and it's not a bad word. It just simply means I don't believe in a God. I was still married at the time, so my wife was still a believer. My kids were raised. My 2 daughters were not in relationship with me because they didn't believe they could be with an atheist. They practiced a thing called tough love or shunning in a sense that, if they were to maintain relationship with me, that would be in a sense, in their view, endorsing my apostasy, my rebellion against God. Their thought is that I'm just in rebellion against God and I need to return to Him. And I've tried to explain to them on many occasions that I can't. You might as well ask me to grow an arm out of my forehead. I cannot do that. That's virtually impossible. It's physically impossible. It's mentally impossible. So anyway, I lived several years in that state, married to a believing wife. It was difficult. We were growing further and further apart. That life became untenable, and I was miserable and didn't feel like I could live my authentic life, my honest, authentic life as an atheist. Began to develop a lot of ex-Christian atheist friends who are my closest circle of people now to this day. And so I just started living my life. I was working in the insurance business and making a good living and doing the best I could to live a good life. But it was empty because I didn't feel like I could really be who I was and the people around me be comfortable with that. So I left that marriage about 3 years ago and began to just live. I lived in an apartment in Nashville and was just living life and loving life and living my best life and just feeling like I had a lot of good years to carpe the fucking diem. That's a phrase I began to live by. It's a phrase that's stitched on a pillow someone gave me. And I really began to apply that and say, carpe the fucking diem. Every day, grab it and go for it. Life is, there's another phrase on a plaque that I had called, it says, a quote, it says, we do not remember days, we remember moments. And I started living that very intentionally, looking for the moments in life, grabbing the best part of life I could and living it. And so that all continued up until dun 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 dun.
You had I don't know how to describe it. Understatement, I would understate it. So just go ahead.
It's a life-changing event. It's one of those doctor visits that everyone dreads. I've been having symptoms for a while because of insurance co-pays and deductibles. I thought, well, let me just wait till the first of the year, and then because I knew I'd be seeing a bunch of doctors and tests and all that. So sure enough, that's what happened. And so in January of this year, I started going to doctors and then referrals and tests. A couple months later, well, the exact date, which is something you don't forget, is February 26th. About 9 o'clock in the morning, I was formally diagnosed with ALS, which is Lou Gehrig's disease, which is fatal, which carries with it a prognosis of 3 to 5 years of life after diagnosis. Or after onset of symptoms, it varies. So I've had symptoms for about 1.5 years. So, I'm looking at 3 or 4 or 5, 6 years if I let it go to the bitter end, which is ugly as hell.
So I don't know if you're comfortable with saying or not, but can you tell me some of the symptoms you're going through?
Yeah, I'm not uncomfortable with anything. Trust me, by this point I've talked about everything. People have asked me if my pecker still works. So
I'm not going to go that far.
Yeah. ALS is a very unpredictable, unique disease. No one knows what causes it, and there's no cure for it. There's no treatment for it. And it starts it's a deterioration of your muscles, essentially. And primarily your nerves quit communicating with your muscles, and so your muscles slowly die, and you lose strength. And it either starts in the hands and the arms, which is where mine is, in my fingers and hands and arms, or it starts in your feet, or it starts in your mouth, your tongue. So I've met different ones who have different things. Some can't walk, some can't talk, some can't raise their arms, and eventually all those things fail, and eventually your diaphragm quits working, which causes your lungs to stop and you die. So you slowly deteriorate. My symptoms have been, I started where I couldn't form letters. I was trying to write in my insurance business. I couldn't fill, certain letters were hard to form, and I knew something was wrong. And then opening packages and buttoning buttons, and gradually things became more difficult. And there were signature moments, like when I couldn't grip a golf club, and I couldn't grip a bowling ball, and I couldn't play my guitar. So I knew something was wrong with my hands. And so it's progressing slowly for me, although I do know that my arms are weaker now than they were a couple, 3 months ago. So it's not something you notice every day, but after a while you realize, wow, that's harder than it was a month ago or 2 months ago. So it's fading. Yeah, it's happening.
So what was your first, instant, I'm sure you were shocked, like an instant shock. It's like, oh shit, I'm going to die.
Yeah. When you start having symptoms like this, the internet is our best friend or our worst enemy. So I was Googling the shit out of that thing, and I was trying to say, okay, what is this and what is that? And I knew that ALS was on the table. I knew it was one of the options. But it could have been a pinched nerve. It could have been other things. And so all the tests, But once I realized what it was, and it was conclusive, and it was clear that this is what I have, my first reaction was, shock, dismay. I was alone. I didn't go there with anybody, and I went home to my apartment and just kind of sat there. And then I started texting certain people that knew I was getting tested. We'd talked a lot about it. Cass is one of them. And some of them I just simply texted, and it just said, it's ALS. That black and white and brutal. Others I called, like my son, and others, I started letting people know. And I was working at the time, and I tried to keep working, but my head wasn't in it. So within a week or two, I retired from the work I was doing and made plans to move out of my apartment and move in with friends, because I just knew to sign my lease was coming up anyway, so the timing was such that I would have had to sign another year lease on the apartment. I knew that probably wasn't wise to try to be living alone, because there are times when I need to do stuff and I'm stuck and I need someone to help me. So I needed to be around people, and I just started making plans to streamline my life, cut the fat, sell things, give things away, travel, do things I want. I made plans to live. And I didn't know what that looked like, but I knew I was going to go hard after it. And I thought, I'll travel as much as I can, see the places I want to see. As long as my money holds up, I'm going to do what I want to do with the balance of my life. And that morphed after a month or so. That kind of morphed into, Marie Delafont started reaching out to the secular community and booking me on podcasts and speaking engagements, and the whole Dying Out Loud tour began, to where I really started paying attention to people's responses to what I was talking about. And what I was talking about was facing death as an atheist, with no thought of an afterlife and no need for one. I'm fine with this. And as opposed to my former view as a Christian, which would have been completely different, thinking that heaven and hell is in the picture and that this life really doesn't matter as much as the eternal life. And so I talk a lot about that. I talk a lot about living your best life, not letting life pass you by, because it's brief and it's precious. So Dying Out Loud is really as much talking about living out loud, and that's what I've been doing on podcasts and speaking gigs. In the next 2 months, October, November, I'm gone every single weekend. I'm actually up through the first weekend of December, traveling to about 8 or 9 different cities, speaking at Universalist churches and secular communities and colleges and anywhere that we can get booked, because I found that this message is resonating with people and inspiring them to look at life differently. And it's just been one of the most gratifying time of my life, honestly.
So I've been paying attention. You're kind of in my community, in my sphere a little bit.
Yeah.
And you have been on a shit ton of stuff, I've noticed.
Yeah.
I know you, Atheist Experience, I've seen. You've been on several podcasts.
Yeah.
And it just amazes me. I mean, the kind of way you're going after it,
Well, I'm in a hurry. I don't have a lot of time here.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, that's really, I feel the urgency of this. I told Marie, book everything you can. And, travel is becoming difficult. It's exhausting, on and off airplanes, in and out of cars. I pretty much have to have someone travel with me now, which makes it more expensive. But I feel that passionately about this message of looking at life and death in the right ways. And it's just the impact it's having on people has blown me away. And so I want to keep doing it as much as I can until I can't do it anymore. And then I'll probably park myself behind a desk and just do a YouTube channel. I don't need my arms for that. I can just sit there. As long as I can talk, I can still do this. And so, yeah, I'm in a hurry. And it is, I do feel a sense of urgency. And I've done probably 30 podcasts. And I've got, like I said, we're traveling all over the country, even into Canada. And probably next year, if I can still travel, I'm going to England and Ireland. And so I'm just really passionate about talking about these subjects, because no one wants to talk about dying, but it's something we have to talk about because we're all going to experience it. So how do we look at it? What's the best approach? And a quote I tweeted out today, or maybe put it on Instagram, I forget what I do, but it's something that Maury, Tuesdays with Maury, was a book about a guy with ALS written years ago. And one of his quotes that stuck out at me, he says, you don't learn how to live until you learn how to die. And so until we reconcile and make peace with the idea of death, we're gonna short circuit our life in a lot of ways. We're not gonna have as good a life, as vibrant a life, if we're in the back of our mind worried about dying or afraid of dying, or there's mystery attached to it. So if we just pull this stuff out in the light and deal with it as it is, as the reality it is, I think it makes everything more powerful. And that's the feedback I'm getting from people. And that's what's so gratifying to me about this, that I can use this fatal disease, this diagnosis that's tragic, that I can somehow, it's become an opportunity to say some things that make a difference for people. So I consider myself lucky that way, because a lot of us don't get that chance.
Well, it sounds like you're definitely inspiring people from what I've heard.
Mm-hmm.
What does your, I don't know if former is the right word, but family and friends think about this?
Well, the reaction to the diagnosis has been different depending on people's worldview. Like I just mentioned about when I talk about Christianity, I'm speaking specifically about conservative evangelical fundamentalist Christianity. That's the tribe I was in. That's the world I lived in for 3.5 decades. And that's where my family is. My 2 daughters, my son's not, but my mom, brothers, sister, people, and then former friends, their reaction has been a bit standoffish. They don't really know what to do with the death of an atheist. They don't really know what category to fit this in, because they're trying to figure out where God fits into it. What's God? So they can't really embrace me and be there with me in it. Because if they do that, then they're kind of embracing my atheism. They're embracing my godless worldview, and they can't let themselves do that. This is my observation. None of them have told me this. None of them have told me anything. A couple of them have come to see me and talked to me, and others have sent messages, but largely they've been a little bit distant and standoffish. And my summation of that is that they just don't know what to do with it. Whereas my atheist community, my secular community, they don't have to factor God into it, And that's the thing about our world before. Whenever something happened, some tragedy or some question, you had to try to figure out, what's God saying about this? Where's God in this? Well, in the secular worldview, when there's no God, you don't have to factor that in. So you just deal with it straight on, straight up. This is it. This is what we have. Now, how do we do with it? So they've been very present. They've been very active and vocal. They surround me. I've got an incredible community of people that want to help me. I've moved in with them, So it's that kind of connection, that kind of care and compassion. I've got tons of people that have told me they want to be there with me at the end. They want to be there all the way through with me. They're not running from it. They're not hiding from it. They're not in denial of it. They just embrace it. They're sad. They're brokenhearted. It's tough. It's tough on the ones around me, and it will get tougher. And I'm aware of that. But they're there with me in it, and it's been incredible, honestly.
Yeah. As you said, you're living with one of them currently.
Right.
Cass and Marie are awesome. Well, I've never met Marie, but she sounds great. Cass, I've met a couple of times. I've known about him. I've been on the show like a long time ago.
Right.
But, a better soul, a purer soul you couldn't meet, I don't think.
Yeah.
He's a hell of a guy. He's very tolerant. He can see through the bullshit. So I just want to throw that out there. He's let me use stuff. Not just because of that, because he's a cool guy.
He is a cool guy, and he's been my best friend. We've been close ever since we met. We met through the Clergy Project. We're both members of that, and and that's the kind of community I've got. Cass is that kind of guy, but there are dozens of them that I'm in close community with, that I share life with, that I see on a very regular basis, and they're all just big-hearted, compassionate, kind, generous, loving, smart people. That's why I want to use the word atheist, and I want to be bold about it, because these are atheist people. They just don't believe in a God, but in every other way, they're as good a person as you would ever find in any sector of the human experience. So our belief in a God makes no difference in terms of how we behave and how we live and what kind of person we are. And if we don't start using the atheist word with more boldness and more clarity, it's going to continue to be this word that's misunderstood and misappropriated. It doesn't mean anything other than I don't believe in a God. That's it. It's not, I'm as good a person as anybody you'll meet, and I'll stack up my group of friends against any group of friends that Christians want to trot out there, or Muslims or humanists or Buddhists or Jews or whoever. I don't care. You line them up, and I'll line my people up, and we'll see. It's just an incredible group of humans, and we're working on a documentary, and a big part of that is going to be showing my life mixed in with these people and talking about the humanity and the goodness of the atheist community. I want more people to see that. I want to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, I've been involved only maybe 5 years or so, and I've noticed the atheist community is a lot more supportive. Of course, I've run into some, there's always going to be a bad section, of course, but...
We're humans.
Yeah. But, I mean, the atheists I still talk to and the ones who I'm still communicating with have been really good for me, because I'm not a terribly social person. Mm-hmm. And so most of the people I know are from Facebook, basically. And I've kind of built a bit of a community, Of course, nowadays, social media is bringing a lot of people together. So, you're right. Atheists can be really intelligent, caring people, and hardcore Christians aren't so much. They're, of course, again, is generalizing a little bit.
Yeah, there's that in any group. You got good ones and bad ones, and mean ones and nice ones, and loving ones and unkind ones. And we're humans, and we all bring our own baggage to the table. We bring our wounds and our lives to it. But our belief in God doesn't make us better. That's the point. And the ideology that, you're an atheist, how do you get your morals? I'm so fucking tired of that question. It's so ridiculous, to be honest with you. It's just, I hope this isn't PG. Yeah. But that idea is just, it's preposterous. And for people to continue to put that out there just shows their ignorance on the subject.
Yeah, that is one of the questions I've always pissed me off, because it kind of shows the ignorance of where you gain your morals or whatever in the first place. Yeah,
the idea that as a Christian, because, I mean, think about this for a minute, and this is the answer I give lately. If a Christian's saying they get their morals from God, i.e. the Bible, because that's God's instruction book, right? So without that, how do you have any morals? So you're telling me as a Christian that you have learned how to obey God's commandments, and that makes you moral. Well, by that definition, if I've got a dog that I can teach to sit, to roll over, to shake hands, and he then obeys my commands, that's a moral dog? That dog's moral because he learned how to obey commands? Well, that doesn't make any sense. And it doesn't make any sense to say as a human that because we obey some God that we've attached the label moral to, that we're somehow moral. Well, that God didn't even have enough morality to put in his top 10 the idea that you should know another person. If slavery didn't make the top 10, that God's not moral, he's immoral. He's a dick.
Or a number of other
It's more important to God that we don't have graven images than it is that we don't own one another. Give me a fucking break.
Yeah, he kind of sounds like a snowflake.
Yeah. Yeah, don't say anything bad about me. I'll get my panties in a bundle. So, that's a nonsense. That morality thing's just nonsense.
Well, I always thought the idea of if you're doing something because you're afraid of eternal damnation.
Exactly. Or a reward. You're doing something for reward or to avoid punishment. That's not morality.
Yeah, you're scared.
Yeah.
And that's what, apparently, the God of the Old Testament especially is, he wants you to be afraid of him.
He wants you scared. Yeah. Fear of the Lord.
Yeah. So, you're right. And there's also, I think it was Penn and Teller guy.
Yeah.
But he says something like, what stops you from murdering as many people as you want?
Nothing.
Oh, I do. And that's none.
I don't want to murder anybody. I know that's just so stupid.
So, I mean, yeah, the whole idea of that to me has always been absurd. And of course, there's equally absurd arguments we could go ad nauseum.
Oh, yeah.
But let's, we take a whole damn 3 hours to do that.
Yeah, that's exhausting.
So, on a more positive note, where have you been in the world there, Dave?
What's that? Where have I been traveling to?
Yeah, where you been traveling to?
Well, my traveling is about to pick up. Mostly I've done the podcasts. I've been to Austin a couple times and done the Atheist Experience shows and ACA down there. Minneapolis, I went to talk at a Unitarian church there. I've done some stuff locally, but I'm about to hit the road. I'm going to be going, between now and the end of the year, I'm going to be in East Tennessee at the East Tennessee State University, Kansas City, Seattle, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, Houston, Toronto, Greensboro, North Carolina, Madison, Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's a lot, especially if you're kind of then not feeling.
Yeah, it's gonna be exhausting, but then I just feel like I've got to do this while I've got the opportunity to do it, because that window is going to close, and so if I don't do it now, I won't get to. So yeah, I'm thankful for the opportunity. There's more things coming in all the time. Salt Lake City next spring, in Nashville here, a couple of places, Florida next spring. They keep coming in, and so I'll keep going until I just physically can't, and I don't know when that'll be. So I'm putting the hammer down.
Kind of backtrack a little bit. So you said you kind of sat down when you found out about the diagnosis or whatever. Mm-hmm. Did you go straight to, I got to just get, do things, do life? Pretty
quick, yeah. It was a very fast transition for me. I didn't fuck around with this. Like I said, I'd say, let's see, that was February. By the middle of March, I'd say within 2 to 3 weeks, I'd made some really fast decisions and really drastic decisions to change my life and really go for it. And yeah, so I really, really put it down and went hard after it, because I realized that was, to me, it was instinctive. It was really the only choice I felt like I had, because if I didn't, I was just going to be curled up in a ball and waiting to die, and that didn't seem very attractive. So I thought, you know what, live as much as I can, as well as I can. And then the dying out loud thing kind of happened and began to take form, and so I shifted from, my original thought was, I'm going to travel to see the places I want to see and just see people and spend time with people I care about and do stuff that I want. And then it kind of shifted into a focus of, what can I do that's going to help some people look at life differently, and that can make a little bit of a mark here on my way out of the house. So that kind of shifted, and mixed in with that, though, I'm still traveling and seeing places that are interesting and doing things that I want to do and meeting people. And my favorite thing to do is when I travel to some place and I've had these online connections, like Facebook, and I've kind of known people virtually, and then I get to meet them face to face. That's one of my favorite things. Like going out to Seattle in a few weeks, and we put the word out that we're coming out to Seattle, and there's a lot of people that have started following me now, the Dying Out Loud thing, and we had 10 or 12 people that popped up and said, hey, we want to meet when we're out there, are we going to do a meet and greet, and then another guy said, hey, since you're going to be out here, I want to get you in to talk at the University of Washington at the Secular Student Alliance. So, just connecting with people in person is just my favorite thing in the world. And the fact that what I'm talking about is inspirational to them and motivational to them, it literally gives me so much energy when I get up every day, that this is kind of like the thing I do. I do it all day. All day long, I'm corresponding with people, or planning stuff, or following up on something, and we're working on new T-shirts. We got Dying Out Loud swag. All this stuff is just kind of overtaking my life, and it just fills up my day. And like I said, if I didn't have something like that to focus on and to give myself to, life would be really hard right now. It's hard right now anyway, but that at least gives me that thing to do and focus on, that I feel like having some meaning and making a difference. And so I just love it. Yeah,
I kind of asked you this before we recorded them. Don't you get kind of, I understand, like, you got to keep going, otherwise you'll kind of sit there and think about
Mm-hmm.
and I understand that. But, you get a little worn out, kind of, I'm tired, it's the right word, but just kind of given the...
Yeah, I felt that way. The last day, I was in Austin a couple weeks ago and doing all those shows down there and speaking. I had a speaking thing there too, and at the end of it, after I'd done like Friday and Saturday and Sunday, and I was just really tired and grumpy and hadn't slept well, and I'm sitting in the car, we're stuck in traffic in downtown Austin, and I remember thinking, what the hell am I doing? Because when I travel, and things that have to do with my hands are difficult, and just use your imagination, but going to the bathroom, it's becoming challenging. And so I've got things in place to help me. So it's easier to do life when you're in your home and you're comfortable, everything's set up, it's your routine, you got it, but you travel and everything becomes different, and you've got to adjust, and things are not there for you, and so so it makes everything I do more difficult, from taking a shower to brushing my teeth to eating to getting in and out of cars. So yeah, it's exhausting, and at the end of it I'm thinking, what the hell am I doing? But then, dude, I get up the next morning and I have a dozen messages from people all over the world that tell me that something I've said made a huge difference in the way they look at life and lifted them out of depression or caused them to not think about possibly ending their life, or some really serious messages. And then I thought, wow, shit, that's why I do this. So it's been overwhelming, honestly.
So you've been getting a lot of support.
Yeah.
You know what they say, it's kind of a cliche, I guess, but if you help one person, then it makes it all worthwhile. But it sounds like you've helped a lot of people. And I think...
yeah.
And you're doing it as an atheist. I know people are like, well, does that make any difference? Well, I would argue that...
It makes more difference.
Yeah, because religious folk, they feel like, not all of them, but they feel like kind of that charity is sort of goes in with the package or whatever. But I feel like atheists who do this, it's more altruistic to me.
Yeah, because like we said before, that you're not looking for a pat on the back from some deity or some... a reward from a god or a punishment if you don't do it. You're just doing it because it's the right thing to do, and you know that it's helping someone. It's helping improve their life, and I don't know how much better does it get. That's just the best.
Yeah, I agree with you. Especially nowadays in today's world, that's wacky as fuck. Let's face it. Yeah, it's good to have stuff like this. It's good to have genuine fellowship, genuine helping of people, because fuck knows we need it. I was going to say God knows we need it.
Yeah.
We're atheists around here, so.
Yeah, we need to be doing everything we can to brighten the world around us. If we're doing what we can to make that sphere brighter and better, then it's going to be better. And one of the quotes I use a lot these days, and it really defines my exit from Christianity into humanism and atheism, is simply this. It's a Maya Angelou quote, and she says, do the best you can until you know better, and then do better. So I feel like I was doing the best I could for 35 years as a Christian. I thought I was doing the best I could, and then I learned, okay, wait, I was wrong. And it's okay to change your mind about something. That's what curiosity and science and all those things lead us to do. Don't get stuck in a way of thinking that you're locked in for the rest of your life. Be open to a different way of looking at something, and be willing to say, I was wrong. I'm going to change my mind about this. I'm still there. If somebody shows me that Christianity is the way and gives me evidence to believe in a God who's in charge of things, then okay, I'll look at that. I'm not locked into my position, but you got to show me something more than what I've seen, and I've pretty much seen it all after 35 years. So do the best you can until you know better, and then do better. So that would help all of us in any situation. Just say, wait a minute, I was wrong about that, or I didn't do that as well as I could have, but I know better now, and so I'm going to do better now. It's a pretty easy way to live.
Well, not easy for everyone. Self-awareness sometimes can be really difficult. I know.
It is, yeah, and that's why we need people around us and be inviting them to say, tell me what I'm not seeing here. If we don't have people around us, then we're going to stay stuck in a way of living that's not the best. And if people are looking at me and saying, well, here's something you might want to think about, Dave, I'll change because you're showing me something I'm not able to see. So, yeah, I agree. Self-awareness is sometimes in short supply.
Well, that's why it's good to have good, honest friends.
It absolutely is.
Because, it helps. You feel comfortable enough with them saying, no, you're wrong. And
exactly.
And you are comfortable enough with yourself to say, you know what, I am wrong.
Yeah.
So I think that's great in any capacity. Yeah.
Absolutely. If we can't own our shit, then we're never going to change. We're never going to grow. We're going to stay stuck in a place that's not healthy, and that's not healthy. So, yeah, if I'm not growing and changing, then I'm dying. And I'm dying. So I'm going to be growing and changing until the last day.
So, what is this dying out loud? How did this idea get started?
Yeah, we started talking about death and life, and the phrase dying out loud just came naturally and easily. And so that's kind of what we labeled it, just to give it a brand, if you will. And then things just happen organically. Like, we didn't have T-shirts. I wasn't thinking about, none of this has been, we didn't sit in any rooms and strategize. It's just kind of happening. Like, one of the messages I got a few weeks ago after the first Atheist Experience show, I got a message from a guy, Brian, out in Oregon, and he sent me this great email. He said, I just really appreciate what you said. I've dealt with cancer. I've been struggling, and you just really inspired me by looking at life with such positivity and passion, and you really motivated me. And he said, I went out and got one of your T-shirts, and one of the phrases, I should preface what I'm about to say about the T-shirts with the bracelets. So pause on the T-shirt. I'm going to go to the bracelet. Stay with me, people. But we have a local ex-Christian atheist group that we meet once a month on average, and just a community of people that, like I was talking about, wonderful people. And the meeting right after my diagnosis was very emotional, and a lot of people were expressing their responses to it, and there was a lot of tears, and it was just. And one of the ladies was talking about how frustrating day in her week, and she caught herself and paused and said, "Wow, Dave's just got this diagnosis. He wouldn't get all frustrated. He wouldn't be feeling this way. How can I get caught up in this?" And someone across the room said, "Yeah, what would Dave do?" And someone else said, "WWDD." So she's an artist, and so she started making these WWDD bracelets. So it's not what would Jesus do, it's what would Dave do. And so what that simply means is, to all of us who grab that phrase, is how would Dave look at this day, this moment? He's got a fatal diagnosis. Is he caught up in the mundane and the trivial, or is he grabbing moments? Is he looking at life full on and grabbing everything he can? So it's helping people who look at that and say, am I living my best life? Am I doing what I would be doing if I knew that my time was limited? Am I making the most of life? That's the idea behind it. It's not like, I'm going to call Dave and see what he would do about this particular situation. So she started making bracelets, and we started selling them. People started ordering them and wearing them. It's a little leather thing with a metal thing. And I got a picture a few weeks later of a guy in Paris, France, he said, I got one of your bracelets. So it's kind of took off like that. So the WWDD thing became a phrase that everybody was using. So Brian in Oregon that sent me the email, he said, so inspired, I went online and got one of your T-shirts. And he sent a picture of a WWDD T-shirt. What would Dave do? And I texted Marie and I said, we don't have T-shirts, do we? Because I thought maybe we did, and I didn't know it because people have been doing stuff. And, I find out about it later, which is fine. I don't care. And she said, no, but we need to. So a couple of days later, one of our friends who's an artist, Casey in Texas, sends a few designs. This is one of them. And so we've got swag now. We got merch, and people can get the T-shirts and wear them. And it reminds people, and it's a great conversation starter, by the way. I was wearing one at a bar in Austin, and the guy says, what is that, a band? You guys a band? And it led me to talk to him in 5 minutes about atheism, Christianity, life, death. I mean, boom. So that's what that is. Dying out loud is just the phrase that we use to kind of encapsulate what it is I'm talking about, what the message is, living your best life, not being afraid of death, looking at dying as an atheist, and being okay with that, recognizing that we don't need an afterlife. This life is plenty enough if we live it the right way, if we go for it. And that's what I talk about. And also attached to that is the idea of the way we die in this country, and with terminal illnesses and people staying alive longer than they want to, longer than their family wants to, but they're staying alive because the religious underpinning of this country demands that we do it that way. And that, you can't play God, you can't take matters into your own hands, blah, blah, blah. Well, that's bullshit. In situations where there is no good end in sight and you're done with it, we should have the right to say, I'm done with it. I want to go now. I want to turn the lights off.
Is that something you thought about?
Oh, yeah. I felt that way before I got this diagnosis, but I really feel that way now, and I will take care of it myself. When I'm done, when I've come to the place, and I don't know where that line is. I drew a line here, and I may move the line, and I say, oh, no, I'm going to stay a little longer. But when it gets to where the quality of my life is less than what I'm comfortable with, where everything I do, someone has to do for me, and when it gets to that point, and I'll know when it's there, I'll say, okay, I'm done. Let's shut this thing down. I had a good run.
Obviously, you couldn't do it here in the South. But...
Well, actually, I can. I got ways.
Okay, well,
No, it's not. It's not illegal.
Oh, okay.
Suicide's not illegal. What are they going to do? Arrest me? Think about it. No, there's an organization called the Final Exit Network. I've been in touch with them. They help you. They show you what to do. There's a mechanism. There's a procedure. It's totally legal as long as no one actually assists you with it. And it's painless. It's easy. And you can do it anywhere.
I do remember this. I don't know if it was gruesome or not. It's kind of neat. Dr. Kevorkian, they did a documentary on him, and there was a device like that. It was like basically you could do it.
Yeah, there's a mechanism. They train you how to do it. It's a nonprofit organization. They have volunteers that'll fly anywhere you are and counsel with you. They have legal representation. It's a great organization that I'm happy to be associated with and to promote. We're going to actually show some stuff on them in the documentary. Yeah, it's. I don't intend to go to the bitter end because it's a brutal disease. When it gets to the end, you can't. I mean, you're basically a vegetable, and you can't do anything. And I'm just not interested in that at all. And I don't think anybody wants that for anyone.
Well, I know probably the best example of what most people have seen is Stephen Hawking had ALS.
Yeah.
And I don't know how the fuck he did it. He had to blink his eye. That he had operated the keyboard by moving his iris. Is that what it was?
Yeah, there's technology for that. I probably won't ever get to that point either. No.
I don't see. I
don't see any quality of life there. Now, if I was, had the interest to the universe like he does, I may stick around. But I'm not that smart, so I don't have that much to offer.
Yeah, I mean, his mind must have been. God, I wish we could take people's brains out, or at least transfer the information,
harvest that thing
electronically or some shit. That I don't know, but I don't know. It's just, what do you tell people who ask you, "How the hell are you doing this, Dave?" I mean, I couldn't imagine myself going through the shit you're going through. Like you said before, like curling up in a ball and just dying.
I've been asked that a lot, and honestly, I think that more people than realize it could do better. I think we don't know what we're going to do until we're there. Until you're there in that moment, and it's on you. I don't think I'm that special. I really don't, and I think more people would do better than they think they would, because you really don't have a lot of choices. And it's really how you look at it, what you do with it, and I do believe that you or anyone else that said, I've had people say, I could never do. You probably could, and you probably would. So, I think most of us sell ourselves short. If I'd have been where you are a couple years ago, I probably would have said, shit, I can't do that, man. But when it gets there. You probably rise to the moment. You probably would.
I think you're probably right, because as you said, I have thought about that several times.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm shit. I know my anxiety. I have bad anxiety. I have depression, all that kind of stuff. I just feel like I'd curl up in a ball. I'd stop. I wouldn't know what to do. It's like I'd be in stasis. But you're probably right. I mean, I got to figure there's something in the human psyche is built for the instinct for survival.
Right. Yeah.
And once you find something like that out, that kicks in, I think. Something
so I think more people would do better than they think they would.
Well, Dave, I know you've done this a million times, but I do want to say to you that I'm glad I got to meet you in person.
Yeah, me too.
Since we happen to live in the same general area.
Right.
And I'm sad I didn't get to see you before. As I said, my friend Jeremy, or your friend Jeremy.
Yeah, Jeremy just become a new friend. He saw me on the Atheist Experience. I talk about us living in Nashville or in the Nashville area, and he reached out and said, "Hey, I want to connect, get you a beer and a cigar." So we did. Cass and I went and met him about a month ago. We had and then he said, "Yeah, you know what?" Because I was going back down to Austin. he said, I think I'm gonna go down there too. I want to see that place. So he went to Austin with us last week. So yeah, Jeremy's a good dude.
Yeah, he had mentioned something about it because I have Atheists at the Pub, not to plug my own
Yeah,
shit.
he mentioned that actually.
Like every month, and he was like, "Yeah, you ought to invite Dave to one of these things."
Yeah, I'll come out sometime.
So the invitation's open to you, Dave.
Absolutely.
Actually, in a couple of weeks, we're having the next one. So,
well, if I'm in town.
Yeah, that's right. If you're in town, well,
when do you typically do them? Weekdays or weeknights?
Weeknights every month. Although I
mean, weekends or
weekends.
Yeah, I'm seriously gone every weekend from this weekend through literally the rest of the year.
We could just get together and have a beer like you and Jeremy.
We could do that, yeah.
know?
Maybe you and Jeremy and Cass and me would go hang out and have a beer. Another guy that lives in Smyrna that reached out, Nick, has become a good friend. He heard me on the show, and so a lot of local people have connected with me after hearing me on a podcast or a YouTube show or something. So yeah, I love connecting with people in person and becoming friends. So it's good.
Well, there's a lot of people I've met in the area who have come to my shindig that I've grown closer to, and I've actually one of my better friends now is somebody I met at one of those. So
cool.
You're right. The idea of community.
It's big. It's important,
especially for atheists, especially in the South.
Yeah, we need all the connections we can get.
You know, in the South, we kind of tend to cling together more tightly because we're in the deep red territory.
Yeah, we're a minority.
So
surrounded, as it were.
Yeah. So, Dave, thanks for coming on. I know you have a lot of this shit coming on, and
I enjoy doing it every time. I really do. I enjoy the conversation and the connection, and I know it's going out there and people are hearing it, and that's what matters. So, yeah, thanks for having me.
Your messages, I'm going to say this again, and everybody can go fuck themselves if they don't like it. But I know this is a trope, but I really think you're an inspiration, and I'm glad you're doing this for other people, and you're helping people out. I really do believe that.
Thanks,
from what
man.
I've seen. So.
I appreciate it.
That'll do it for this episode of the Podunk Polymath Podcast. You can find this show website at thepodunkpolymath.com. You can download this show from the page or on Stitcher, iTunes, iHeartRadio, or from your favorite podcatcher. I'm also on Twitter at Podunk Polymath, on Facebook at facebook.com/thepodunkpolymath, and on YouTube at youtube.com/thepodunkpolymath. You can also join the official Facebook group for the show at facebook.com/groups/the Podcast Posse. All those words are separated by periods. If you'd like to contact me, you can email me at podunkpolymath@gmail.com, or you can leave a voicemail at 615-378-POPO-7676. The more bizarre, the better. If you would like to support the show, become a member of the Patreon Posse. Go to patreon.com/thepodunkpolymath, and for as little as $1, you can become a patron and make me feel like this whole endeavor wasn't a big waste of time. And plus, you can also stroke my ego. You can also make a one-time donation to the show via PayPal at paypal.me/podunkchris. I want to thank everyone who listens to the show. I really do appreciate it. Until next time, y'all take it easy now, okay?